The night sky above Chile's Atacama Desert was clear and cold. Dr. Alex Carter sat alone in the Deep Space Monitoring Station, listening to the endless static from the universe. For 12 years, he had searched for signs of alien life. Every night brought the same result, nothing but empty silence from the stars. At 2:47 a.m., something changed. A new signal cut through the static, strong and clear. Alex sat up straight, his coffee cup forgotten. The signal was not random noise. It had patterns, mathematics, purpose. His hands shook as he adjusted the equipment to get a better reading. The signal was coming from a star system called Kepler 442, over 1,000 light-years away. Alex ran the data through every filter and analysis program he had. The results were impossible to ignore. This was not a natural phenomenon. Someone or something was trying to communicate. Alex called his supervisor, Dr. Helen Brooks, at 3 in the morning. Her sleepy voice answered after several rings. "This better be important, Alex." "Helen, you need to get down here right now. I think we just received our first message from aliens." 20 minutes later, Dr. Brooks stood behind Alex's chair, staring at the data on his screen. Her face was pale. "Are you absolutely certain this is not equipment malfunction?" "I've checked. Everything 3 times. The signal is real, it's artificial. And Helen, there's more. The signal contains mathematical sequences that prove intelligence. Whoever sent this knows advanced physics." Dr. Brooks picked up the secure phone that connected directly to NASA headquarters. "We need to wake up the director, and probably the president too." Within 6 hours, the small monitoring station in Chile was surrounded by military vehicles and government officials. Scientists from around the world were flying in on emergency transport planes. The quiet desert facility had become the most important place on Earth. Dr. Carter worked with a team of linguists and mathematicians to decode the message. The aliens had been smart. They used universal constants like pi and prime numbers to establish basic communication. Then they moved to simple pictures and diagrams. The first breakthrough came when Dr. Sarah Martinez, a linguistics expert from MIT, recognized a pattern. "They're showing us their solar system," she said, pointing to a series of symbols on the screen. "Look, they've drawn their star and the planets around it. This symbol keeps appearing next to the 3rd planet. That must be where they live." The second breakthrough was more disturbing. The aliens were showing them images of war, ships attacking cities, people running and hiding. The mathematics became desperate, urgent. Dr. Carter felt sick as he understood what he was seeing. "They're not just making contact," he told the room full of officials. "They're asking for help." The complete message took 18 hours to decode. When they finished, the room was silent. The message was simple and heartbreaking. "To any beings who can understand this transmission, we are the Zelani people of the world you might call Kepler 442b. We are a peaceful species. We build, we learn, we love our children. But now, we face extinction. A great empire of conquerors has come to our world. They destroy everything we have built. They take our people as slaves. They kill those who resist. We have tried to fight, but we are not warriors. We are scientists and artists and farmers. In 5 of our days, they will attack our last cities. Our children will die. Our civilization will end. We do not know if anyone will hear this message. We do not know if anyone will care about strangers so far away. But if there is mercy in the universe, if there are people who help others in need, please hear us. Please remember that we existed. Please remember that we tried to be good." President Martinez arrived at the facility that afternoon. He was a former Marine general who had seen combat in 3 different wars. But as he read the decoded message, his eyes filled with tears. "How long would it take to get there?" he asked General Lisa Hayes, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "With our current technology, about 18 months if we push everything to the limit. But sir, we don't even know if our weapons would work against these aliens. We don't know what we would be fighting." The president looked around the room at the assembled officials. "So, a peaceful civilization is about to be wiped out and we're the only ones who can help them." "Sir, we don't know if we can help them. Admiral Jake Morrison said. "We've never fought in space before. We don't know anything about this enemy they're facing. But we do know something," Dr. Carter interrupted. "We know they asked for help. And we know what happens to good people when evil ones are left alone to do whatever they want." The president was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to General Hayes. "What would we need to mount a rescue mission?" "Everything we have, sir. Every ship, every soldier, every scientist. And we'd have to invent new technology on the way. It would be the biggest risk in human history." "And if we don't go?" Dr. Carter spoke up again. "Then in a few days an entire civilization dies. And we'll spend the rest of our lives knowing we could have tried to save them but chose not to." President Martinez walked to the window and looked out at the desert. In the distance he could see the mountains where ancient peoples had once looked up at the same stars and wondered if they were alone. Now humanity knew they were not alone. And they knew that goodness and evil existed beyond Earth. "I need to address Congress and the nation," the president said finally. "But I can tell you my recommendation right now. We're going. We're going because it's the right thing to do. We're going because someday we might need help too, and we'd want someone to answer our call." Admiral Morrison stepped forward. "Sir, the odds of success are very low. We could lose everything." "Admiral, what are the odds of success if we do?" "Nothing?" "Zero, sir. If we don't go, they all die. Then we go, and we bring everything we have." Within hours, Project Warhammer was authorized with unlimited funding. Every space-capable ship in Earth's fleet was recalled and retrofitted for interstellar travel. The world's best engineers worked around the clock to solve problems that had never been solved before. Dr. Carter found himself appointed as the Chief Communications Officer for humanity's first interstellar military mission. As he watched the preparations begin, he thought about the message from the Zilani. They had called humans strangers so far away, but they were no longer strangers. 3 days later, Dr. Carter sent a reply message toward Kepler 442. It was simple. "Your message was received. You are not alone. Help is coming." The response came back faster than expected. The Zilani had been monitoring for a reply. Their message was short. "3 of our 7 cities have fallen. But now we have hope. Thank you for hearing us." As Dr. Carter read those words, he felt something change inside humanity. For the first time in their history, humans were not fighting for territory or resources or revenge. They were fighting for people they had never met, on a world they had never seen simply because it was right. The monsters of Earth were about to leave their home planet, but they were not going as conquerors. They were going as protectors, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the first alien message reached Earth. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Every major port and military base buzzed with activity. Scientists worked alongside soldiers. Engineers pulled 18-hour shifts. The entire planet had one goal: get to Kepler 442b before it was too late. Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching workers install the final pieces of the experimental fusion drive. The ship had been Earth's pride. Just a year ago, the most advanced vessel ever built. Now it looked like a completely different machine. Every surface was covered with new equipment, new weapons, new systems that pushed the limits of human engineering. "Captain, the quantum communication array is online," reported Lieutenant Commander Kate Stevens. "We can talk to Earth in real time, even from another star system." Blake nodded. The quantum communicator was just one of dozens of new technologies that had been developed in the rush to save the Zilani. Human engineers had accomplished in months what should have taken decades. Fear and determination made incredible things possible. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the fleet's chief scientist, and the closest thing they had to an expert on alien biology. "Captain, I've finished analyzing the biological data the Zilani sent us about their attackers." "What did you find?" "The Vorthak are not like anything we've seen on Earth. They're part organic, part machine. They enhance themselves by absorbing genetic material from other species. Every world they conquer makes them stronger." Blake felt a chill run down his spine. So they're not just destroying civilizations, they're stealing their evolution. Exactly. And Captain, there's something else. The Vorthak have never faced a species like humans. Every race they've conquered has been peaceful, like the Zilani. They don't understand predators. In the ship's training bay, Colonel Maya Rodriguez was putting her Marines through their final exercises. The Interstellar Marine Battalion was made up of volunteers from every branch of Earth's military. They were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. "Listen up," Rodriguez shouted to her troops. "In 2 weeks, we're going to be fighting aliens on an alien world. The gravity might be different, the air might be poisonous, the enemy might be bigger, stronger, or faster than us, but I'll tell you what they won't be. They won't be meaner." "Sergeant," Pete Walsh raised his hand. "Colonel, what if our weapons don't work on them?" "Then we get creative, Sergeant. Humans have been killing things that were bigger and stronger than us for 100,000 years. We didn't become the top predator on Earth by being fair fighters." The Marines laughed. They were scared, but they were also excited. For the first time in their lives, they were fighting for something bigger than politics or territory. They were fighting to save an entire species from extinction. In the engineering section, Commander Lisa Park was working on modifications to the ship's weapons systems. The Zilani had provided detailed scans of Vorthak technology. Their ships used energy shields that could stop most attacks. But the Zilani had never seen nuclear weapons. "Chief, how many warheads can we fit in a standard torpedo?" Park asked Chief Engineer Tony Martinez. "With the new miniaturization tech, maybe 50 kilotons. But Commander, at close range, that'll take us out too. Sometimes you have to get close to do the job right." On the UES Vengeance, Captain Dan Foster was reviewing tactical plans with his officers. The Vengeance was smaller than the Defiance, built for speed and stealth. Foster's job was to hit fast and disappear before the enemy could react. "The Vorthak fight in large groups," Foster explained to his crew. "They overwhelm their enemies with superior numbers. But they've never fought guerrilla warfare. We're going to teach them what it feels like to be hunted." Dr. Alex Carter sat in his communications center, trying to maintain contact with the Zilani. The aliens sent updates every few days. The news was always bad. More cities had fallen. More people had been taken as slaves. The Vorthak were getting closer to the Zilani's last strongholds. "Dr. Carter," called his assistant, Lieutenant Jim Brooks, "we're getting another transmission from Kepler 442. Carter put on his headphones and listened. The message was from Elder Zefka, the Zilani scientist who had sent the original call for help. His voice was weak and tired. "Friends from Earth, we do not know your names, but we think of you every day. The destroyers have taken 6 of our 7 cities. We are hiding in the deep tunnels beneath Crystal Gardens, our most sacred place. There are perhaps 50,000 of us left. The children ask when the Sky Warriors will come to save us. We tell them soon. We tell them to have hope. Please hurry. We do not have much time." Carter wiped tears from his eyes. He had been talking to the Zilani for 6 months. They felt like family to him now. The thought of losing them was unbearable. Admiral Jake Morrison called a meeting of all ship captains 3 days before departure. The 5 ships of humanity's first interstellar fleet were ready. The UES Defiance would serve as the flagship. The UES Vengeance and UES Retribution were fast attack vessels. The UES Guardian carried supplies and medical equipment. The UES Liberty was packed with Marines and landing craft. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Morrison began, "in 72 hours we make the jump to hyperspace. Our destination is 1,200 light-years away. The journey will take us 18 months. When we arrive, we'll be facing an enemy that has conquered dozens of worlds. Intelligence estimates put their fleet strength at over 200 ships. "Captain," Blake spoke up. "Admiral, what's our primary objective? Save the Zilani. Everything else is secondary. If we can drive off the Vorthak, great. If we can only buy time for evacuations, that's still a win. But we don't come home without trying to save those people." The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone understood the odds. 5 human ships against a fleet that had conquered an empire. "Sir," said Captain Foster. What if we can't save them all? Then we save as many as we can, and we make sure the Vorthak remember the price of attacking innocent people. Dr. Vasquez raised her hand. Admiral, I've been studying the Vorthak social structure. They operate like a hive mind during combat. If we can disrupt their communication network, they might become confused and disorganized. What would it take to do that? I'm working on a computer virus based on human neural patterns, something completely alien to their biological systems. If we can get it into their network, it might cause them to attack each other instead of us. Admiral Morrison nodded. Do it. We'll need every advantage we can get. The night before departure, Dr. Carter received one final message from the Zilani. This time it was from a young Zilani named Kirava, who had learned some English from studying human transmissions. Dear Sky Friends, I am young, but I understand that you are coming to help us. My parent units tell me that you live very far away, farther than our fastest ships could travel in many lifetimes. They say you are coming anyway because it is the right thing to do. I want you to know that if I survive, I will spend my whole life trying to be worthy of your kindness. Thank you for caring about strangers. Carter showed the message to Captain Blake. The captain read it twice, then looked out at the stars. Captain, do you think we can actually save them? Carter asked. Blake was quiet for a long time. Finally, he answered. Dr. Carter, I've been a soldier for 25 years. I've seen what humans can do when we're angry and we're fighting for something we believe in. The Vorthak think they're the scariest thing in the galaxy. They're about to learn they're wrong. The next morning, the 5 ships of Earth's fleet left orbit. Millions of people watched from the ground as humanity's first interstellar war fleet disappeared into hyperspace. They carried with them the hopes of 2 worlds and the fury of a species that had decided some things were worth fighting for. In the deep tunnels of Kepler 442b, Elder Zefka felt the ground shake as another Vorthak bombardment hit the surface, above. But for the first time in months, he smiled. The Sky Warriors were coming. Earth's monsters were on their way. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Captain Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, staring at the sensor readings. What he saw made his blood run cold. How many ships? He asked Lieutenant Commander Stevens. 212 Vorthak vessels surrounding the planet, sir. They're massive. Each one is at least 3 times the size of our largest ship. Dr. Carter was monitoring alien communications from his station. Captain, I'm picking up Vorthak transmissions. They're not even trying to hide their presence. They're broadcasting their victory celebrations across the system. Blake activated the fleet communication channel. All ships, this is Defiance. You're seeing what I'm seeing. We're outnumbered 40-1. But remember why we're here. There are innocent people down there counting on us. The Vorthak ships were unlike anything in human experience. They looked more like living creatures than machines, with smooth organic curves and surfaces that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. They moved through space like predators stalking prey. On the Vorthak flagship, war leader Grix Newell was examining the new arrivals through his ship's sensors. The Vorthak were 8 feet tall with chitinous armor covering their bodies. Multiple arms ended in razor-sharp claws. Their faces were insect-like, with compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans couldn't imagine. These new ships are small, Grix Newell told his subordinates. Probably another weak species come to beg for the lives of the Zilani. Send 50 ships to destroy them quickly. I want to finish here and move to the next system. But Grix Newell had never encountered humans before. He had no idea what was coming. Captain Blake opened communications on all frequencies. His voice was calm and steady. Attention, Vorthak Fleet. This is Captain Ryan Blake of the United Earth, Ship Defiance. You are committing genocide against a peaceful species. Withdraw from this system immediately or face the consequences. The response came in broken English, translated by Vorthak computer systems. Weak beings from unknown world, you will be destroyed like all others. Your ships will be taken, your people will serve the Empire. Wrong answer, Blake said quietly. Then he opened the fleet channel. All ships, you are cleared to engage. Show them what humans do to bullies. The first Vorthak attack wave consisted of 50 ships, moving in a tight formation toward the human fleet. They fired plasma cannons that could melt through the hull of any ship they had encountered before. But the humans weren't there anymore. The 5 human ships had split up the moment the battle began. Captain Foster in the UES Vengeance led his ship into the system's asteroid belt, using the rocks for cover. The Vorthak ships followed, confident in their superior numbers. "Now," Foster whispered to his crew, as the alien ships entered the asteroid field. The Vengeance emerged from behind a large rock and fired nuclear torpedoes at point-blank range. 3 Vorthak ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The remaining Vorthak ships turned to pursue the Vengeance, but Foster was already gone, weaving between asteroids too quickly for the larger alien vessels to follow. Meanwhile, Captain Dan Wilson in the UES Retribution was implementing the most dangerous part of the human battle plan. His ship flew directly toward the main Vorthak fleet, as if making a suicidal attack run. "All hands prepare for ramming speed," Wilson announced to his crew. The Vorthak ships converged on the Retribution, eager to destroy the foolish humans, who dared to attack them directly. But at the last moment, Wilson triggered the ship's experimental antimatter warhead. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a new star that burned for 30 seconds before fading. The Retribution was gone, but it had taken 12 Vorthak ships with it. On the surface of Kepler 442b, Elder Zefka felt the ground shake from the battle above. The Zilani had taken shelter in the deep tunnel systems beneath Crystal Gardens, their most sacred place. The tunnels were ancient, carved by their ancestors thousands of years ago. "Elder, something is happening," young Kirava said, pointing upward. Through cracks in the tunnel ceiling, they could see flashes of light in the sky. "The Sky Warriors have arrived." Zefka felt hope for the first time in months. The beings from Earth had actually come. Across impossible distances, strangers had answered their call for help. But the battle above was just beginning. Human drop pods began falling through Kepler's atmosphere like burning meteors. Each pod contained a squad of Marines trained for alien combat. Colonel Rodriguez felt her stomach drop as her pod plummeted toward the planet's surface. Through the small window, she could see Vorthak ships trying to shoot down the human landing craft. Most of the pods made it through. Some didn't. 2 minutes to landing," she announced to her squad. "Remember your training. We don't know what we're walking into down there, but we know why we're here. There are good people counting on us." The first human to set foot on an alien world was Sergeant Pete Walsh. His pod landed in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful Zilani city. The buildings were made of crystal and metal, designed for beauty rather than war. The Vorthak had destroyed most of it, leaving only twisted wreckage. Walsh kicked open his pod's hatch and stepped out, assault rifle ready. The air was breathable, according to his suit's sensors, but he kept his helmet on anyway. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making him feel stronger and faster. "Sarge, over here," called Private Ben Clark. "I'm picking up movement in that building." Walsh approached carefully. What he found changed everything. A group of Zilani civilians were hiding in the basement of a partially destroyed building. They were tall and graceful with crystalline features that caught the light. Their eyes were large and gentle, filled with fear, but also hope. The eldest of the group stepped forward. It was Elder Zefka himself who had climbed from the tunnels when he saw the human pods landing. "You came," he said in carefully practiced English. "Across all those empty light years, you actually came." Walsh removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face that had seen too many battles. "We got your message, sir, and where we come from, we don't leave friends to die." Tears ran down Zefka's crystalline cheeks. "Friend. Yes, we are friends now, are we not? Though we have never met, though we are different in every way, we are friends." Colonel Rodriguez's voice crackled over Walsh's radio. "All units, we have Vorthak ground forces moving toward the Zilani refuge sites. They've got hover tanks and some kind of walking machines. Looks like they're trying to finish the job before we can stop them." Walsh looked at the group of Zilani civilians. They were obviously not fighters. They were scientists, artists, teachers. People who had spent their lives creating beauty and knowledge, now forced to hide like animals. "Sir," he said to Zefka, "you and your people need to get back to those tunnels. We'll handle the ugly guys with too many arms." As the Zalani retreated to safety, Walsh and his squad moved through the ruins toward the sound of approaching enemies. In the distance, they could see Vorthak ground forces advancing. The aliens moved in perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism, but they had never faced human soldiers before. They had no idea that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things bigger and stronger than themselves. The first Vorthak ground unit to encounter humans was a reconnaissance squad of 6 warriors. They were confident as they searched the ruins for hiding Zalani. What they found instead was Sergeant Walsh and his Marines waiting in ambush. The battle lasted 30 seconds. When it was over, 6 Vorthak soldiers lay dead and the humans hadn't taken a single casualty. "Command, this is Walsh," the sergeant reported. "First contact with enemy ground forces. They're big, they're ugly, and they're used to fighting people who don't fight back. But they're not bulletproof." Above the planet, the space battle continued. Captain Blake had managed to lure a group of Vorthak ships away from the main fleet. The human ships were faster and more maneuverable than their enemies, but they were running out of ammunition. "Captain," Dr. Vasquez called from her laboratory, "the computer virus is ready, but we need to get close enough to their flagship to upload it into their network." Blake looked at the tactical display. The Vorthak flagship was surrounded by dozens of smaller vessels. Getting close enough to upload the virus would be suicide. "Do it," he said. "If that virus works, it might save both worlds." The UES Defiance began its final approach toward the Vorthak flagship. Enemy fire lit up space around them as dozens of ships focused their weapons on the lone human vessel. But Blake had one more trick to play. As the Defiance closed in on the flagship, every remaining human ship in the system began transmitting on the same frequency. Dr. Carter's virus, disguised as a surrender message, flooded the Vorthak communication network. The effect was immediate and devastating. Vorthak ships began firing on each other as their coordination systems failed. The biological network that linked their minds became chaos, filling their thoughts with human emotions they couldn't understand. On the surface, Colonel Rodriguez watched in amazement as Vorthak ground forces stopped their advance and began attacking each other. The perfect coordination that had made them unstoppable was gone. "All units, the enemy is confused and disorganized," she announced. "Press the attack. Drive them off this world." The computer virus was working better than anyone had hoped. Across the Kepler system, Vorthak ships fired on each other in confusion. Their perfect coordination was broken. For the first time in their history, they were fighting as individuals, instead of a unified force. War leader Grixnol screamed in rage as he watched his fleet tear itself apart. The biological network that connected all Vorthak minds was filled with alien thoughts and emotions. Human patterns of thinking spread through their systems like poison. "How are these creatures doing this to us?" he roared at his subordinates. "They are weak. They are few. We should have crushed them in minutes." But on the surface of Kepler 442b, the humans were proving they were anything but weak. Sergeant Walsh led his squad through the ruins of Crystal Gardens, the most sacred place to the Zalani people. The Vorthak had turned it into a military base, destroying ancient monuments and beautiful artwork. Walsh felt anger burning in his chest as he saw what they had done. "These aliens have no respect for anything," he muttered to Private Clark. "They're just destroyers." The squad reached a position overlooking the main Vorthak camp. Hundreds of alien soldiers moved between temporary structures and weapon platforms. In the center was a large building that had once been a Zalani temple. Now it housed Vorthak commanders. "Sarge, that's a lot of bad guys," Clark whispered. "Yeah, but look how they're moving now," Walsh replied. "Before the virus hit, they moved like parts of a machine. Now they're stumbling around like they don't know what to do." Walsh was right. The Vorthak soldiers were clearly confused. Some stood at their posts, waiting for orders. Others wandered aimlessly. A few had started fighting among themselves. "Colonel," Rodriguez's voice came over the radio. "All units, enemy coordination is completely broken. Begin Operation Sledgehammer. Hit them hard while they're confused. The human attack began with artillery fire from portable rocket launchers. Explosions lit up the Vorthak camp as humans struck from multiple directions. The aliens tried to organize a defense, but without their network connection, they couldn't coordinate their response. Sergeant Walsh's squad attacked from the north while 2 other squads hit from the east and west. The Vorthak were physically stronger than humans and had better individual weapons, but they had never learned to fight as independent soldiers. They've spent so long thinking as a group they can't think for themselves, Walsh shouted over the sound of gunfire. Press the attack. Private Clark threw a grenade into a group of confused Vorthak soldiers. The explosion sent the aliens scattering in panic. Sarge, they're actually running. In space, Captain Blake was taking advantage of the chaos in the Vorthak fleet. The UES Defiance moved between enemy ships that were too busy fighting each other to notice the humans. Blake's crew targeted their engines and weapons, leaving them helpless. Captain, we're getting a communication from the planet, reported Lieutenant Commander Stevens. It's Colonel Rodriguez. Blake opened the channel. Go ahead, Colonel. Captain, we've broken the main Vorthak ground base. The Zilani are coming out of hiding to help us. But we've got a problem. There's a massive Vorthak ship in high orbit. It's charging some kind of weapon pointed at the planet. Blake checked his sensors. The ship Rodriguez was talking about was enormous, even by Vorthak standards. It was clearly a planetary bombardment vessel designed to destroy entire worlds. Understood, Colonel. We're on it. But as Blake moved the Defiance toward the bombardment ship, he realized they had a serious problem. The giant vessel was surrounded by a dozen smaller ships that weren't affected by the virus. These must be the ship commanders, probably with better shielding against computer attacks. All remaining ships, this is Defiance. We need to stop that bombardment vessel before it can fire on the planet. Any ideas? Captain Foster's voice came over the radio from the UES Vengeance. I've got 1 torpedo left, Captain. If I can get close enough, maybe I can punch through their shields. Negative, Foster. That ship is too heavily protected. It would be suicide. Sir, with respect, this whole mission has been suicide from the beginning. But we came here to save people, not to play it safe. On the planet's surface, Elder Zefka was seeing his world with new eyes. For months, his people had hidden in tunnels, afraid and helpless. Now they walked in sunlight again, working alongside the warriors from Earth to drive the invaders away. Young Kirava ran up to him excited. Elder, I helped the Sky Warriors find hidden weapons caches. They showed me how to use a human radio. Zefka smiled at the young Zilani's enthusiasm. Then, his expression grew serious as he looked up at the sky. Even without telescopes, he could see flashes of light from the battle above. The humans were still fighting impossible odds to save his people. Colonel Rodriguez approached with a group of her Marines. Her armor was scorched and dented from the fighting, but her eyes were bright with determination. Elder Zefka, we need to evacuate your people to the deep tunnels again. There's a Vorthak ship up there that can destroy the whole planet. No, Zefka said firmly. We will not hide anymore. Your people have shown us that sometimes one must fight for what is good. We will fight alongside you. Rodriguez looked at the peaceful Zilani who surrounded them. They were artists and scientists, not soldiers. But their faces showed the same determination she saw in her Marines. All right, she said. But if that ship fires, the tunnels might be the only safe place. In space, the battle for the bombardment ship had become desperate. The UES Vengeance was making its attack run, dodging fire from a dozen enemy vessels. Captain Foster pushed his ship to its limits, weaving between plasma blasts that could vaporize his vessel in an instant. This is Vengeance, Foster reported. I'm almost in range, but I don't think 1 torpedo is going to be enough to stop this thing. Captain Blake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Foster, abort your attack run. Defiance is going in. Sir, your ship is the flagship. The mission needs you. The mission needs that bombardment ship stopped. And we're the only ones big enough to do it. Blake turned to his crew. All hands, this is the captain. We're going to ram that Vorthak ship. Anyone who wants to leave the bridge should do so now. No one moved. Dr. Carter looked up from his communication station. Captain, I'd like to send one final message to Earth. Do it. Carter's hands moved over his controls. His message was simple. Mission successful. Zilani people are free. Tell our families we did the right thing. The UES Defiance accelerated toward the massive Vorthak bombardment ship. Enemy fire poured into the human vessel, but Blake's crew kept their ship on course. They were committed now. But at the last moment, something unexpected happened. The smaller Vorthak ships that had been protecting the bombardment vessel suddenly turned their weapons on their own flagship. Dr. Vasquez's virus had finally penetrated their systems too. Captain, the enemy ships are attacking each other. Stevens shouted. Blake saw his chance. Instead of ramming the bombardment ship, he changed course toward one of the smaller vessels. The Defiance's nuclear warheads tore through the confused enemy ships, clearing a path to the main target. Captain Foster's voice came over the radio. Defiance, this is Vengeance. I'm making my attack run now. The UES Vengeance streaked toward the bombardment ship like a comet. Foster fired his last torpedo at point-blank range, then pulled away as hard as he could. The explosion tore a massive hole in the alien vessel's hull, but the giant ship wasn't dead yet. Its main weapon was still charging, and its targeting systems were locked onto the planet below. On Kepler 442b's surface, Colonel Rodriguez watched the sky through her binoculars. She could see the bombardment ship's weapon beginning to glow with deadly energy. All units, take cover in the deepest shelters you can find. That thing is about to fire. Elder Zefka stood beside her, refusing to hide. Colonel, your people came so far to save us. If we are to die, we will die standing with our friends. Hundreds of Zilani gathered around the human Marines. They had spent months in fear, but now they faced the end with courage they had learned from Earth's warriors. In space, Captain Blake made one final desperate move. The UES Defiance, battered and barely functional, positioned itself directly between the bombardment ship and the planet below. This is Captain Blake, he transmitted to the entire system. To any Vorthak listening, you want to destroy that planet? You'll have to go through us first. The bombardment ship fired. Its beam of pure destruction struck the Defiance head-on. For a moment, the human ship's shields held. Then they failed, and Blake's vessel began to break apart. But the Defiance had bought precious seconds. Captain Foster, his own ship badly damaged, made one final attack run. The Vengeance crashed directly into the bombardment ship's main weapon, destroying both vessels in a nuclear fireball that lit up the entire system. On the planet's surface, the combined human and Zilani forces cheered as they saw the explosion. The greatest threat to their world was gone, but the battle wasn't over yet. War leader Grixnul, enraged by the loss of his bombardment ship, was gathering the remaining Vorthak vessels for one final assault. He would not let these upstart humans make him look weak in front of the Empire. The survivors of both fleets prepared for the final confrontation that would determine the fate of two worlds. War leader Grixnul watched his fleet fall apart around him. Half his ships were destroyed. The others were either fighting each other or fleeing in panic. His perfect war machine had been broken by creatures he had dismissed as weak and primitive. Gather all remaining ships around the flagship, he ordered his subordinates. We will destroy the planet and leave nothing for these humans to save. But Grixnul's remaining forces were no longer the unstoppable fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds. Only 30 ships answered his call, and many of those were damaged. The biological network that had made the Vorthak Empire so powerful was completely broken. On the surface of Kepler 442b, Colonel Rodriguez counted her remaining forces. She had lost many good soldiers in the fighting, but the mission was almost complete. The Zilani were free, and most of the Vorthak ground forces had either been destroyed or had fled. Elder Zefka approached her position, moving carefully through the ruins of Crystal Gardens. The old Zilani scientist carried a human rifle that Sergeant Walsh had taught him to use. His gentle hands looked strange holding a weapon, but his eyes showed fierce determination. Colonel, my people are asking what happens next, he said. The destroyers are leaving, but will they return with more ships? Rodriguez looked up at the sky where flashes of light showed the final space battle was still raging. I don't know, Elder. That depends on whether we can convince them that attacking peaceful worlds isn't worth the cost. The remaining human ships were in bad shape. The UES Guardian, the supply vessel, had taken heavy damage but was still functional. The UES Liberty, which carried the Marines, was barely holding together. Only Captain Foster's UES Vengeance remained battle-ready, and even that ship was running low on ammunition. Dr. Carter, now aboard the Guardian after the Defiance was destroyed, worked frantically to maintain communication with the scattered human forces. Captain Blake was gone, along with dozens of good people who had volunteered for this impossible mission. All ships. This is Guardian, Carter transmitted. The Vorthak are forming up for a final attack. 30 ships, including their flagship. They're moving toward the planet. Captain Foster's voice came back over the radio. Guardian, this is Vengeance. I'm down to my last few torpedoes. If they all attack together, I don't think we can stop them. On the planet, Sergeant Walsh was organizing the defense of the refugee centers where thousands of Zilani had gathered. The aliens were still afraid, but they no longer hid in tunnels. Human courage had taught them that sometimes running wasn't the answer. Young Kirava ran up to Walsh, carrying a message crystal that Zilani used for long-distance communication. Sergeant, the other cities are sending warriors to help. They want to fight alongside the Sky people. Walsh looked at the crystal in amazement. For thousands of years, the Zilani had been completely peaceful. They had never even had armies. But seeing humans fight to save them had awakened something in their hearts. How many warriors? He asked. All of them, Kirava replied. Everyone who can hold a weapon is coming. They say the Sky people showed them that good must sometimes fight against evil. In space, war leader Grixnol began his final assault. The 30 remaining Vorthak ships moved toward Kepler 442b in a tight formation. Without their biological network, they had to rely on simple radio communication, but they still had superior firepower. Today we finish this, Grixnol announced, to his fleet. These humans will learn that the Vorthak Empire cannot be defeated by primitives. But as the alien fleet approached the planet, something unexpected happened. Ships began emerging from hyperspace around them. Not Vorthak ships, but vessels from other species that the Empire had conquered. Dr. Carter stared at his sensors in disbelief. Captain Foster, are you seeing this? We've got incoming ships from at least 6 different alien species. They are not Vorthak. The new arrivals were refugees and survivors from worlds the Vorthak had destroyed. They had been hiding, in deep space, afraid to fight back against their oppressors. But news of humanity's intervention had spread across the galaxy. For the first time, someone had stood up to the Empire and won. A transmission came in on multiple frequencies. It was translated into dozens of languages, including English. Warriors of Earth, this is the Free Fleet of the Outer Worlds. We heard your call to arms. We come to fight alongside you. Captain Foster felt tears in his eyes. The humans had come to save one species, but they had inspired an entire region of the galaxy to stand up for themselves. War leader Grixnol found himself surrounded by over 100 ships from species he had thought were completely defeated. His 30 vessels were now outnumbered just as the humans had been at the start of the battle. This is impossible, he snarled. These species are weak. They are conquered. They cannot fight. But he was wrong. The other species had learned from the human example. They fought with coordination and tactics instead of just brute force. Most importantly, they fought with the fury of people who had been oppressed too long. The final battle was short and decisive. The Vorthak ships, without their network advantage and outnumbered 4-1, were systematically destroyed. War leader Grixnol's flagship was the last to fall, torn apart by weapons from a dozen different worlds. On the planet's surface, Colonel Rodriguez watched the victory celebration with mixed feelings. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Captain Blake and hundreds of other humans had died to save people they had never met. Elder Zefka approached her with a group of young Zilani who wanted to join the human military. Colonel, These younglings wish to travel to Earth and learn, to be warriors like you. Rodriguez looked at the peaceful aliens who had been transformed by war. Elder, are you sure that's what you want? War changes people. Once you learn to fight, you can never completely forget how. Perhaps that is necessary, Zefka replied. For too long, we believed that being good meant being helpless. You have shown us that sometimes good people must be dangerous people, or evil will triumph. 6 months later, the first human colony ship arrived at Kepler 442b. But these weren't conquerors or settlers. They were families, teachers, engineers, and doctors. People who wanted to help rebuild what the war had destroyed. Dr. Carter had been promoted to ambassador, the first human representative to an alien world. He worked with Elder Zefka to establish the Treaty of Crystal Gardens, which created a mutual defense pact between Earth and the Zilani worlds. Colonel Rodriguez had been offered a promotion and a desk job on Earth. She turned it down. Instead, she stayed to train the first generation of Zilani soldiers and to help establish the Interstellar Defense Corps, a combined military force of humans and aliens working together. Why did you stay, Colonel? Young Kirava asked her one day as they walked through the rebuilt Crystal Gardens. Rodriguez thought about all the friends she had lost in the battle, about Captain Blake and the crew of the Defiance who had sacrificed everything for strangers, about the choice humanity had made to cross the galaxy to help people in need. Because this is where I belong, she finally answered. Earth taught, the galaxy that someone has to stand guard over the innocent, that someone has to be ready to fight monsters. I guess that someone is us. The memorial to the fallen humans was built in the center of Crystal Gardens. It was simple and beautiful, carved from the same crystal the Zilani used for their most sacred art. The inscription was in both English and Zilani script. To the warriors of Earth who crossed the darkness between stars to answer a cry for help. They were called monsters and chose to be heroes instead. Years passed. The Vorthok Empire collapsed as world after world rebelled, inspired by the human example. Other species began sending their own distress calls, hoping that somewhere among the stars Earth's protectors were listening, and they were. The message of humanity had spread across the galaxy, that good people would never stand alone, that evil would always face resistance, and that sometimes the scariest monsters were the ones who chose to fight for light instead of darkness. Indeed, the deep tunnels beneath Crystal Gardens now converted to a school where human and Zilani children learned together. The story was told every night. The story of the day aliens sent a cry for help across the darkness, and Earth's monsters answered, with love in their hearts and fire in their hands. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly the way it should be.